It's July 22nd, 2019, and it's time to review 5 of the most outrageous, infuriating, or just plain baffling things that have happened lately. It's your Facepalm 5. Let's count them up. Number 1, Pence takes propaganda tour of Border Patrol concentration camps. Last time, I told you about a group of Democratic members of Congress who visited detention facilities near the U.S.-Mexico border and subsequently reported overcrowded, unhygienic living conditions and troubling behavior from Border Patrol agents. Vice President Mike Pence must have thought that sounded like fun, so week before last, he conducted his own inspection of a pair of migrant detention centers in Texas. Unlike when the Democratic members of Congress visited similar facilities, cameras were allowed inside with Pence. Didn't the Border Patrol say the Democrats weren't allowed to bring cameras in because of concern over the privacy of the inmates? I guess they got all these folks to sign waivers, huh? Anyway, this visit was videotaped, which is how we got this shot of Pence, standing in a room with dozens of men held behind a chain-link fence like livestock, observing the scene through his emotionless lizard eyes. Later, Pence gave an interview to CNN where he parroted the Trump administration party line, "Everything is great, the detainees are being well cared for. Sure, there's a bit of an overcrowding problem, but don't blame us for that. Blame the Democrats for not giving us more money so we could build more concentration camps. Because if you don't let us build more concentration camps, we're just gonna have to keep packing them into the concentration camps we already have. What else are we supposed to do? Not put people in concentration camps? Get real. These people have committed the crime of illegal entry into the United States. That's a misdemeanor offense, people, and when you're charged with a misdemeanor, you get locked up indefinitely. Everybody knows that. It's just the way it works in this one context, for reasons that definitely have nothing to do with racism. Hey, we're not done with this subject yet. Number 2, head of Border Patrol was member of anti-immigrant Facebook group. This is a follow-up to another story I mentioned in the previous video of this series. ProPublica reported on the existence of a secret Facebook group frequented by thousands of current and former U.S. Customs and Border Patrol agents. ProPublica's investigation found numerous posts that were racist, sexist, derogatory toward members of Congress, such as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, mocking the deaths of migrants. Carla Provost, chief of the Border Patrol, released a statement condemning the group, calling the offensive posts completely inappropriate and contrary to the honor and integrity I see and expect from our agents day in and day out. Okay, that's the sort of thing you'd like to hear from someone in her position who just learned of the existence of such a group, except she didn't just learn of the group's existence. She commented on a post back in November. The post she commented on wasn't one of the nasty ones, and there's no evidence that she participated in any of the toxic behavior that went on in the group, but the fact remains she knew about the existence of this group. She surely must have known something about its content, and as the head of the agency, she apparently did nothing about it. And she's not alone. Numerous senior Border Patrol agents have been identified as participants in the group. Following the publication of the ProPublica investigation, Customs and Border Patrol released a statement claiming it is investigating the group, insisting, quote, "CBP does not tolerate misconduct on or off duty and will hold those who violate our code of conduct accountable." And hopefully that happens, but the real problem isn't the existence of the group or the hateful and ignorant nature of much of its content. The intolerant, inhumane attitudes behind that content are the true cause for concern. The Facebook group merely confirms what many of us have suspected for a long time, that such attitudes are pervasive and tolerated within the ranks of the Border Patrol, as they are in many other law enforcement agencies as well. The CBP's statement goes on to say, "These posts do not reflect the core values of the agency," and maybe they don't, since officially the agency can declare its core values to be anything it wants, but they do seem to reflect the core values of quite a few agents. We're not talking about a few bad apples here. We're talking about a long-standing institutional problem. It won't be solved by investigating a Facebook group and disciplining a few employees. Actually, what am I saying? It won't be solved at all while the current administration is in power. To this president, the bigotry and cruelty on display in that Facebook group aren't causes for concern, they're qualifications. Number 3, Republican senators introduce anti-fascist bill. It's always a good sign when high-ranking government officials are going out of their way to vilify a group of people whose defining characteristic is opposition to fascism, isn't it? Last week, Senator Ted Cruz declared on Twitter, Antifa is a terrorist organization composed of hateful, intolerant radicals who pursue their extreme agenda through aggressive violence. Time and time again, their actions have demonstrated that their central purpose is to inflict harm on those who oppose their views. So let's just pause and contemplate that for a moment. A sitting United States senator has just declared that anti-fascists, that is, people who are against fascism and who show up at gatherings of fascists to challenge them, are terrorists. But haven't anti-fascists committed acts of violence, Steve? I'm sure a few of you are asking. Maybe more than a few if some retrograde shithead has made a response video by now. And it's true, Antifa has occasionally acted violently. Anti-fascists have been linked to acts of vandalism and destruction of property. They've occasionally punched people. Lately, they've taken to throwing milkshakes. This isn't exactly sociable behavior, but let's put it in context. Antifa groups operate almost entirely in response to fascists and other right-wing extremists. When they show up somewhere in force, it's because right-wing extremists are expected or are there already. I think it's also important to note that while Antifa's tactics against far-right extremists are often confrontational and have led to the aforementioned property damage and acts of assault, Antifa doesn't kill people. In fact, according to the annual report on murder and extremism in the United States published by the Anti-Defamation League, which has been critical of Antifa's methods in the past, in the United States in 2018, there were no killings related to Antifa or any left-wing extremist group. Not only that, the ADL attributes only 15 killings to left-wing extremism in the last 20 years. They don't seem like very good terrorists. Compare that to the statistics for killings related to right-wing extremism. 49 just last year, 313 in total from 2009 to 2018, and more than 3/4 of those were linked specifically to white supremacy. Right-wing extremists kill far more people in the US than Islamist extremists or left-wing extremists. So, of course, it's Antifa that Ted Cruz singles out. And Cruz wasn't just whinging on Twitter. Alongside fellow Republican Senator Bill Cassidy, Cruz has introduced a resolution to condemn Antifa and call for it to be designated as a terrorist organization. The resolution makes specific mention of the recent attack on fascist sympathizer Andy Ngo and the doxing of ICE employees, and then adds a line at the very end about using all available tools to combat all forms of domestic terrorism, including white supremacist terrorism. Well, we know that's not genuine. If Cruz and Cassidy were serious about fighting all forms of white supremacy, they'd help to remove Donald Trump from the presidency, and then they'd resign themselves. It wouldn't solve the larger problem, but it'd sure make things a lot easier in the short term. Hey fellas, if you find yourself feeling threatened by anti-fascists, maybe take a minute and have a think about why that might be. Number 4, House Democratic leadership turns on its own members. One of the secondary consequences of the Republican Party saying, screw it, let's just be Nazis, is that it's distracting attention from what a bunch of hapless fuck-ups the Democrats are. As a Democrat, I think that's too bad, because I'd really like my party to, do a better job at everything. There are some bright spots, Congresswomen Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and Ayanna Pressley being foremost among them. These women, all in their first term in Congress, have given the party a desperately needed shot in the arm, supporting transformative legislation like the Green New Deal and Medicare for All, and calling upon their colleagues to investigate the Trump administration and hold it accountable for its corruption and criminality. These women are pointing to a bold, exciting, and progressive future for the Democratic Party and the United States. They're outspoken, they're courageous, they're ready for a fight. But those very qualities are why Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, the highest-ranking Democrat in Congress, doesn't seem to like them very much. According to the Washington Post, in a closed-door meeting week before last, Pelosi warned Ocasio-Cortez, Omar, Tlaib, and Pressley, without naming them directly, that their attempts to upset the status quo could threaten the party's majority. It's not just Pelosi's scolding of these four members of Congress, it's the fact that she's failed to support some of their key proposals, including the Green New Deal and Medicare for All, either of which could serve as a rallying point for younger, more progressive voters in next year's crucial general election. Speaker Pelosi is concerned about winning that election and protecting the Democratic majority, and I get that, but if people can't trust the Democrats to fight for them, to not only stand up to Trump and the Republicans, but to push for real change and a better future, what good is that majority? Now it's time for the segment devoted to some of the other things Donald Trump has done recently to disgrace the presidency and embarrass and/or endanger the United States and the rest of the world. It's number 5, The Further Misadventures of Lord Dampnut. Please keep in mind, as always, the following is not a complete list. So, by now, most of you know that the Speaker of the House wasn't the only one who was unhappy with Representatives Ocasio-Cortez, Omar, Tlaib, and Pressley. Last week, Trump tweeted, "So interesting to see progressive Democrat congresswomen who originally came from countries whose governments are a complete and total catastrophe, the worst, most corrupt and inept anywhere in the world, if they even have a functioning government at all, now loudly and viciously telling the people of the United States, the greatest and most powerful nation on earth, how our government is to be run. Why don't they go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came? Then come back and show us how it is done. These places need your help badly. You can't leave fast enough. I'm sure that Nancy Pelosi would be very happy to quickly work out free travel arrangements." I hope that stings a little, Madam Speaker. As is the case with most of what Trump says, his tweets about the four congresswomen are both bigoted and factually incorrect. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was born in New York, Rashida Tlaib was born in Michigan, and Ayanna Pressley was born in Ohio. Ilhan Omar was born in Somalia, but her family left that country when she was 8 and came to the United States when she was 12. She's been an American citizen since the year 2000, which, according to Trump's warped logic, would seem to make her more of an American than Trump's wife Melania, who has only been a citizen since 2006. But of course, I'm forgetting that Trump's logic, like everything else about him, is corrupted by racism and ego such that he could never regard someone who looks like Ilhan Omar as being as American as someone who looks like his wife. The next day, Trump denied the tweets were racist, shrugged off the support his attacks on the congresswomen have attracted from white nationalists, saying, "Many people agree with me," then doubled down on his original remarks, saying, "If you're not happy here, if you hate our country, you can leave." Trump's entire presidential campaign was built on the premise that the United States was a broken and crime-infested place, which he and he alone could fix. Just felt like a reminder of that might be in order. Trump seemed to focus his anger particularly on Ilhan Omar, which isn't surprising since she's the only one of the four who was actually born outside the US, and as a wearer of the hijab, she is visibly Muslim, one of Trump's favorite groups to vilify and fearmonger against. A couple of days later, Trump held a campaign rally in Greenville, South Carolina. He brought up Representative Omar to his crowd of supporters, touching off a "send her back" chant. When he was asked about that chant the next day, Trump claimed he was not happy with it, then lied and said that he tried to stop the chant by speaking again very quickly. Here's what actually happened.
And obviously and importantly, Omar has a history of launching vicious anti-Semitic screeds. And she talked about the evil Israel, and it's all about the Benjamins. Not a good thing to say.
So, by speaking again very quickly, he meant listen to the chant for over 10 seconds and then wait until it starts to die down before talking again. Sometimes he misspeaks. He's still learning the job. Trump's recent attacks on Omar and her colleagues are just the latest in an ongoing series of seeming rock bottoms. Trump telling Omar and the others that if they don't like it here, they can leave, and presiding approvingly over a send her back chant are points on the same line as the speech he gave at the start of his campaign, when he described Mexican immigrants as drug dealers, criminals, and rapists. Trump denigrates and casts suspicion on immigrants and people of color because he can, because it makes him feel powerful, because it gives his supporters a thrill. That's why he announced a massive series of ICE deportation raids recently, when no such sweeping operations were conducted or apparently even ever planned. Trump threatens, he bullies, he hypes. He does this because that's what his base wants him to do. And it's what he promised them he would do. As Adam Serwer wrote last year in The Atlantic, and many others have also observed, the cruelty is the point. That's 5. Speak out, act out, resist, look after each other. Hey folks, hope you got something out of this one. If you did, please click like and share the video and subscribe to this channel if you're not subbed already. And also, please consider helping me to continue making videos like this one and like all the videos I make by becoming a supporter of this channel with a monthly donation through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron of this channel for as little as $1 a month. And believe me, those $1 a month pledges really add up and help me out tremendously. But if you can afford it and you think I'm worth it, and you pledge $5 a month or more, you get yourself a shout out at the end of the Facepalm 5, just like these fine folks, my newest $5 or more per month patrons. And their names are Mark Gazdzick, thank you Mark. Danny K, thank you Danny. C.R. Barboni, thank you CR. Paul Mehta, thank you Paul. Cassandra Cadigan, thank you Cassandra. Aldrin and Nate Thorne, thank you Aldrin and Nate. Fluffy Foxy Boy, thank you Fluffy Foxy Boy. Mark Jenkins, thank you Mark. Maps of Bliss and Rage, thank you Maps of Bliss and Rage. And Sean Selman, thank you Sean. Thanks to all of you who are my patrons at whatever level you are currently pledging, however long you have been. I appreciate all of your support. Thanks to all of you for watching this video, whether you are a patron or not. I couldn't do this without your support and your attention either. I have so much gratitude and appreciation for all of you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.